Gun control is the regulation of the sale, ownership, and use of firearms. We are proposing to set limits and restrictions on guns in order to protect all Americans from danger of setting no standards or boundaries on guns. This kind of gun control will save many innocent lives while upholding the Second Amendment. In October of 2017, 22,000 people gathered for a concert in Las Vegas. Without warning, gunshots began peppering the air as the concert quickly turned into a massacre. Bodies fell on bodies, littering the pavement as people frantically attempted to escape. 58 people lost their lives and 851 suffered from injuries from the bullet spray and ensuing chaos. Mass murderer Stephen Paddock committed suicide soon after his crime, leaving no motivational evidence. How did he even obtain the weapons to commit this crime without raising eyebrows? Stephen Paddock's mental health deteriorated, making his criminal who should have been caught by gun control laws in both Nevada and California. Now, my two main issues on why gun control is necessary. Gun control is necessary because of an unethical society that struggles with mental health and suicide. Gun control is needed because of the ethically struggling culture in the United States. Ethical is defined as anything related to right or moral principles. According to the Bible, man is inherently evil. Psalms 51:5, surely I was sinful at birth, sinful from the moment my mother conceived me. James Madison, a president of the United States and author of the Bill of Rights, affirmed this in his Federalist 51 paper. He said, if angels were to govern men, neither external nor internal controls on government would be necessary. Now, men are not angels, and this much is evident. In order to control these men, the government must control itself, but also be able to control the populace. Gun control keeps the populace secure, safe, and strong. Stemming from the issue of ethics is a horrible but common fatality, suicide. According to Everytown Research Center, the average firearm suicide rate in each state is 14 per 100,000 people. 3 states, Alaska, Utah, and Wyoming, impose some of the least restrictive gun control laws, and their suicide rates are the highest, according to the same research center. This is a connection. Are we expected to believe that making guns easier to access will protect our loved ones from the permanence of self-inflicted death? Bit by bit, the future of the United States is dying because gun control is lax, submissive, easily bypassed, and blindly non-existent. Hopes and dreams are dying because of the mental health in our country is struggling, and we choose to look away. Protection for our country can be found in gun control. Our opponents will argue that there should be absolutely no gun control. But is this really what you want as parents, siblings, and children? Making guns available to all at any time means increased danger from suicides, crimes involving murder by firearms, and accidental shootings. Just last week, Fox News reported on this small girl in Georgia who was shot in the head and killed when her brother accidentally discharged a loaded gun in a glove box. Thank you.
A young woman from Houston, Texas, did not throw her gun in her home. However, at 18, her friend gave her a handgun and taught her how to use it. She began to carry her gun with her in her purse, despite the fact that it was illegal in Texas at the time. In 1991, she went to eat at Louis' cafeteria with her parents. A man drove his truck through the window of the restaurant, leapt out, and began massacring. Hut instinctively reached for her purse, but she remembered that 3 months prior she had removed her gun and kept it in her car until fear of being caught and arrested. The man murdered 23 people, including Hup's parents. Hup became an advocate against the laws that prevented her from protecting her parents. The use of gun only depends on the intent and mentality of its possessor. Therefore, gun control laws would be unethical and ineffective in making the United States a safer place. First, gun control will not reduce fatal crime. Second, gun control will not prevent criminals from obtaining firearms. Third, gun control prevents law-abiding citizens from defending themselves. First, gun control will not reduce fatal crime. The UK banned all handguns and guns of a higher caliber than 22 in the Firearms Act of 1997. Yet, this has not caused fatal crime to decrease in the UK. In 2018, there were over 35,000 stabbings to increase each year. 35 stabbings involving a knife or sharp object. Stabbings continue to increase each year. Additionally, the number of acid attacks continue rising yearly, with over 2,000 acid attacks between 2016 and 2018. As we remember the anniversaries of the Oklahoma City and Boston Marathon bombings, we are reminded that guns aren't the only weapon capable of killing and injuring mass numbers of innocent people. In 2017, the 29-year-old rented a truck and drove it down a bicycle path near the World Trade Center in New York City. He killed 8 people and injured 11. These statistics and examples prove that even if the perpetrator is deprived of one weapon, he will find another weapon to use. It is the mind behind the car, acid, knife, or gun that decides to turn it into a weapon of destruction. Second, gun control will not completely prevent criminals from obtaining firearms. The prohibition legislated a ban on alcohol, which causes productions to go underground to the black market. On the black market, illegal drugs are sold, illegal weapons are sold, even humans are sold. I would like to call the attention to the fact that we are attempting to control criminals with gun control laws. A criminal is a person who has disobeyed the law intentionally. According to Dr. Daniel Webster, director of Johns Hopkins Center for Gun Policy and Research, 65% of guns used in a crime in 37 states with the most restrictions were obtained illegally. They were obtained by the way of gun sharing, under-the-counter transactions, or illegal dealers on the black market. Third, gun control disarms law-abiding citizens from the ability to defend themselves, as shown in the testimony of Suzanne Hutt. One thing to remember, the police aren't preventers, they are responders. The police do the best they can to respond as quickly as possible, but seconds count in a life-and-death situation. In Fort Worth, Texas, the police response time can be up to 9.5 minutes. In San Francisco, California, the response time is 5.46 minutes. These minutes can be fatal to those involved. These response times are higher in rural areas. Naomi, my teammate, lives in a town that cannot afford police patrol. The nearest sheriff is 20 minutes away. What would happen to our family if someone were to break in and they had no guns to defend themselves? In conclusion, gun control is unsafe, it is unethical, and therefore it is undesirable. What Americans must realize is, they that can give up essential liberty to obtain a little temporary safety deserves neither liberty nor safety. Benjamin Franklin. If we make the choice to give up our control and freedom with our weapons to our government, a little more freedom slips away from our grasp. Is it worth it? Thank you very much for your time and attention.
My opponents mentioned the mass shootings that occur in the United States. I would like to point out that the statistics for mass shootings are vastly lower than the statistics for homicides and suicides in individual households when it affects family members and sisters and brothers and mothers and fathers that are living out the terror of seeing guns in households taking the lives of children and father and brothers that no longer have the mental health to think through their decisions. I'll give you a few more statistics on suicide. Claiming the lives of nearly 22,000 Americans every year, including over 950 children and teens. Firearm suicide is a significant public health crisis. Nearly 2/3 of all gun deaths in the United States are suicides, not mass shootings, an average of 59 deaths a day. The problem is getting worse, and it's because of the ethically and morally struggling households in the United States. In order to fight the issue we have with gun deaths, you must first look to the problems behind it. Children exposed to violence, crime, and abuse are more likely to abuse drugs and alcohol, suffer from depression, anxiety, post-traumatic stress disorder, or fail and have difficulties in school, and that all contributes to criminal activity. The shooter who shot up the Parkland school, he had lost both his mother and his father to suicide and drug use. What does this say? Gun control is necessary so that we can face the problems that are necessary. Thank you.
First, I would like to address my opponent's claim that we said something about mass shootings, which we made no mention of. First, I would like to address your claim about suicide. The reason why this is invalid is suicide has nothing to do with guns. Suicide is committed by the individual. The individual who decides to commit suicide will use any form to do so. As a victim of suicidal thoughts, I know as a fact, in the past when I was suicidal, I wasn't thinking about using a gun to kill myself. There were very many other opportunities, such as overdose, chemicals, hanging. These are very vivid descriptions, but guns are not the only means of this. And suicide is a horrible thing, but gun control is not going to prevent it. Mental health. I will agree with my opponents that this is a huge problem in our nation today. However, the Parkland shooter should never have obtained his weapons in the first place. According to the Baker Act in Florida, the shooter was in trials after being reported dozens of times for erratic and angry behavior by his neighbors and his classmates. He was considered being held under the Baker Act, which would have allowed him to get the mental help he needed and would have prevented him from obtaining any weapons. However, medical clinicians overturned this act twice, overturned the move to hold him under it. It is not the fault of the guns or the laws against guns. It is the fault of faulty diagnosis.
Perhaps what my opponent says about suicide is true, but I have statistics to say otherwise. The website Every Town for Gun Safety, which is backed up by many independent researchers, people who live in the United States with high rates of household gun ownership are almost 4 times more likely to die by gun violence than in states where fewer households own guns. This shows that guns almost triple one's risk of death by suicide. There is a connection here. Government is tasked with protecting the right to life. That is one of the natural laws that our founding fathers built this country upon. They can use means necessary, and that means limiting the access that citizens have to guns. If that comes through limiting ammo, installing psychological tests, my colleagues and I are not advocating that we take away guns completely. We are merely advocating that we take more care to protect the children and the people in the United States by limiting the gun access that citizens have that might use them to take their own lives. Lives, dreams, hopes, and futures are being taken away from those that have bright futures ahead of them. What will we say? What will we do? We should not ignore this problem, and gun control will help us solve the problem.
My opponent mentions independent studies on suicide. However, my opponent does not mention what her sources are for these independent studies, or if these independent studies are reliable. She also seems to have ignored the fact that suicide is a matter of the mind. Even though I have completely pointed out in the beginning that suicide is the matter of the mind, even if guns were removed from these homes, gunshots are an easy way of suicide, but someone with suicidal thoughts will still commit suicide without the gun. If they do not have access to a gun, they will still find another way to do it. Whether that is overdosing on the medicine in their mother's medicine cabinet, or holding themselves underwater. Also, I would like to ask my opponents how they propose to keep guns out of people's hands. They claim that the guns are removing dreams, bright futures from these people's homes and lives. How do you propose to keep them out of their hands? Statistics show in the statistics we pointed out in our beginning speech, 65% of gun crimes are committed by illegally obtained weapons. Illegally obtained. You cannot keep these weapons out of these illegal. Laws are not going to prevent illegal activities from happening because, as a matter of fact, they are illegal.
First of all, I would like to state that we have not stated our sources, but I will state them here. Michael Bloomberg supported many of those researches, and not only did they do it for just a couple of months, they have tracked these things for 6 years, which plays into everything. We have also previously stated and almost defeated our opponent's claims with mental health. We stated that mental health plays into everyone's decisions with suicide. It is the depression and things like that that destroy their ability to make these decisions properly. They are choosing this permanently, not temporarily. This is how they're using a solution that is permanent to a temporary problem. As previously stated and proven, gun control can save lives. This country was and still is set and balanced on ethics. In the Declaration of Independence, it says we are endowed by our Creator certain inalienable rights. Among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. When you do not have gun controls, shooters have the liberty to take your child's life and their own. When you do not have gun control, teens and adults choose permanent solutions, not temporary ones. The shooters who commit these horrendous crimes do not receive true happiness. Rather, they end up killing themselves and destroying another image of God. Limits and boundaries for all gun owners and guns allow life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness to continue and flourish all throughout the U.S. Firearm injustices will continue to occur without gun control. Martin Luther King Jr. said, "Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere." This is true. We have seen it with our own eyes. Threats in Hobart, Oklahoma have happened to, I believe, third graders. For a program, they said if it was going to continue, something was going to happen to third graders. These things should not be happening. And one way to do that is take the guns out of the shooter's hands. We are not merely proposing to take them from mentally stable people. We are not proposing that. We're just saying mentally unstable people should not even be able to obtain them. Our opponents do not think so. They think that guns should be in the hand of everyone, no matter who they are. So, this is just as this stuff is ethical. We are not proposing to take them from everyone, as I've already previously stated. But that is all that I have. Thanks.
As my team has presented, guns are not the problem we have in the United States. Even if guns were to be outlawed, violence would not stop. People would not cease to be injured or killed. The fallen nature of man prevents this from ever ceasing. You can put laws in place to restrict one weapon from being utilized by law-abiding citizens, and you may prevent some violence, but it will not cease. And it will not prevent all criminals from obtaining guns. And ultimately, you villainize those that own weapons legally and use them for recreation and protection. You then remove these individuals' right to self-protect and freedom to practice legal activities. I wish to take a moment to remind the audience and my opponents of a time in the history of our proud nation where gun control was applied in Texas. What were the causes of the Texas Revolution in 1835? Most people are unaware that one cause that pushed Texans to battle for their freedom was when President Santa Anna decided to create laws against the Texans' right to own guns. He believed that gunless Texans would be less likely to rebel. So I declare that 1 in 500 Texans were needed in the local militia, and that only militiamen had the right to own guns. All non-militiamen were required to surrender their guns immediately. Angered at the prospect of losing their firearms, Texans refused to comply and told Santa Anna, "Come and take them." In response to their defiance, Santa Anna resorted to force. We all know how that worked out for him. The proposition of this debate was gun control is ethical and will make the United States a safer place. Each side has effectively presented their views. Now the decision rests with you, the audience, the people of this nation. Will you stand by as the government is convinced to grab more power and remove more of your liberty? Will you stand by as the right to self-defense is removed from the people? Consider this. I charge you to consider the repercussion of such a move. Consider our founding fathers, as stated by Roger Sherman during the House consideration of a militia bill in 1790. Conceived is to be the privilege of every citizen and one of his most essential right to bear arms and to resist every attack upon his liberty or property, by whomsoever may. The particular states, like private citizens, have a right to be armed and to defend by force of arms their rights when invaded. Never forget the sacrifice made to attain freedom we now possess. I hope with the evidence that my team and I have presented that you will be able to make your own decision, and that the information presented by all of us, that you are able to make your own decision for yourself. Not what we want, but what you would like. Thank you.